Hello and welcome to this introduction to Skipper's scoring system. Here we see the landing page, which is available to the public at goskipper.co.uk. We're going to need to go to the admin area, which is located at goskipper.co.uk/dashboard. First off, we need to log in. You'll only need to do this once. This is the dashboard, where we can see an overview of the club data. We can view series, sailors, and boats by clicking into the various pages. We'll start with sailors. We can add a sailor using the plus button at the top right of the table. To edit a sailor, we select the sailor, which takes us to the Edit Sailor page. From here, we can edit their name, add a nickname, which can be used if there are two sailors with the same name at the club, and delete a sailor. If the sailor has existing results, then you won't be able to delete them. You'll have to first delete the results. For John Doe, he doesn't have any results, so we can safely delete him. Boats work in the same way. We can add using the plus icon in the top right, and by clicking on a boat, we can edit the sail number and the class. We can also delete the boat, providing that it's not associated to any existing results. Now onto series. To create a new series, click the plus icon at the top right of the table. First, we enter the series name. We encourage adding the year to the end of the series name, just so you can differentiate. The number of discards will likely be 0 initially. We can update this later when we want the results calculation to include discards. We will use SSC 2021 for the handicap system, and the type will be series. We want to use all 3 fleets for our series. We can then see our new series in the series list. Initially, a series has no races or entries. We can add a race using the Add Race button. We encourage the race name to be Race 1 with a capital R, but you don't have to. Also select the date. It defaults to today's date. This then creates 3 races, 1 for each fleet. We can navigate between the fleets using the Fleet tab at the top of the page. Next, we will add some entries. Click the Add Entry button. Select the race you're currently preparing, which for us is Race 1, and enter the sail number of the entry you'd like to add to the series. On the left, we can see any matching entries competing in the current series, which is our test series. On the right, we can see all entries known to Skipper with that sail number. There's 2 here for RS400 with 2 different crews. For us, there are not yet any entries competing in our series, so there are no results on the left. We do have some matching entries who competed in previous series, so we can simply add them to our new series by clicking the Add button. This creates a copy of the entry, so don't worry if you need to edit it later on. We can now see the entry in our current series. The default racing status is Did Not Compete, or DNC, but the status could be one of many. In our case, this entry is due to race, so we will mark them as racing using the RAC status. If we're trying to add an entry that is not previously raced, then we will have to create a new entry. Click the New Entry button to do this. Enter the fleet, which for us is handicap, and the class, which for us will be albacore. You don't need to add a helm or a sail number at this stage, but it is advisable to enter at least one of them so you can more easily identify the entry. At this stage, if we find that the sailor or the boat we're trying to add doesn't exist, we can close this box and add the sailor or boat. In our case, we're trying to add an albacore with a sail number 5555. As you can see, this sail number doesn't exist. So we close the pop-up, click the new boat, add the sail number, which is an albacore, submit, go back into the add entry panel. We can see that our previous selections have been recorded, and we can select our new sail number. I'm going to submit this. The entry will then be added to the series. As I mentioned, their race status is DNC by default. So if they are racing, then we will have to set them to RAC. We can do that in one of two ways. Firstly, as we've already seen, by using the add entry form, which we're already at the moment. Select the race you're interested in, enter the sail number, which is 5555. We can see that the entry is correctly entered into the series with a default race status of DNC. We can use the drop-down to set them as racing, just as before. The second way is to use the race results page. If we return to the series, find the correct fleet, which is handicap, and open the race we're interested in, race 1. We can see our new entries presented here, and we have the opportunity to set their race status. So here we have our albacore, which has a race status of RAC, which is actually correct. But if we click on the status, then we can change it to whatever we'd like to. From this race results page, we can also edit the entry. If we scroll across, then we can see the edit entry button. This is very similar to edit sailor or edit boat pages. We can just update the helm or the class, or we can add a crew if we'd like to. If we wish to set or edit the sail number, then we can do that using the edit sail number button, which is just next to the edit entry button. Editing the sail number is separate from editing the entry, because whilst an entry stays the same for all races in a series, they are allowed to race with different sail numbers, as long as they're sailing a boat of the same class. If a sailor changes class halfway through a series, then they should be scored as two separate entries. From the race results page, we can also edit a race by clicking the pencil icon in the top right. There are a few fields available here. We can change the race name and the date, and we can also change the start time. The race status toggles whether the results are available to the public or not. The default status is pending, where the results are not available to the public. When the status is racing, the results are still not live, but the public will be able to see that the race is in progress. Preliminary is a status where the results have been scored, but there still might be some protests in hearing, and so the results are subject to change. Once a race is finished, all protest hearings are over and the results are final, then we can set the status to final.